I'm Dodge Feeler, and this is The Biology of Becoming, where we bridge science and spirit, and we ask what it takes to stay human in the middle of it. We talk parenthood and building things, spirituality, frontier medicine, longevity, and the one that matters most, how to live well, how to taste the spice of life and still find it in the mundane.
Hello, my name's Dodge Feeler. I am the host of The Biology of Becoming, and today I have Chelsea Steele, the CEO of Any Baby Can Southwest. She's much more than that, and we're going to kind of dig in today about what that means. So kind of a cold start here, or cold open, Chelsea. I'm going to kind of jump right in. The artist and the executive. So kind of where you're the most divided. You said the artist made room for the executive. So how did that trade happen? And do you want it back, or are you able to find that middle ground?
Oh, it's a beautiful question. I think I constantly think of that question because I started very much as an artist. I think as a child, just growing up and trying to find ways to, be creative and kind of explain these things that I had in my brain. I'd listen to music and I would feel it so differently. And so I've always just tried to find ways to connect. I think really it's about connection with people. I know that you feel that way very much as well. And so always been an artist, and then just going through life, trying to find ways to, put food on the table. And there was always this battle, do I be an artist who's the struggling artist, or do I go, the solid route and do something that's maybe a different type of meaningful, but that is a stable kind of paycheck. And so, definitely with my background, I'm a very organized person. I'm somebody who loves processes and making inefficient things work, and just naturally really good in business. And so I've always, I think, just naturally gone into that, but I've always struggled because I want to be the artist. So I think now, being the age that I am, I really try to find the balance. How can I be the executive, but also the artist? So that's where, with ABC of Southwest Texas, we do a lot of different things where I try to bring in the arts and the creativity. So next year, you're going to see, for our bereavement services, we're doing a play. JC and I are doing a show about the little boy who commits suicide. And the whole play is 90 minutes of two people, the mother and the teacher, that explore why this young child committed suicide, but it ties it back to our services. So to me, I think that's reaching a different audience, and it's also fulfilling my soul because I get to do something that I love and that speaks deeply to me. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you
I
definitely.
never think you can eliminate one aspect of yourself, or
Wow.
people talk about finding the light. You got to find the darkness as well, and I think that I grapple in both of those areas really well, and that's kind of what keeps me solid on my feet, is having access to both those aspects.
Yeah. No, you answered it beautifully. And I completely agree. We're all half light, half shadow. And every business has half light, half shadow. There's always the underbelly.
Yes.
And I definitely see the art in what you guys are doing, even like the gala making it about, uh,
Yes.
it already have like the Golden Brick Road for the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, you definitely do that well. It's beautiful. I kind of have done the opposite. Of my brother and my father are both English professors. And
Oh,
I kind of told myself I wasn't an artist, although if you look back, I definitely did that, but it was a story I told myself. So I really just threw myself into the science and becoming a nurse practitioner, and now being, a business owner, and a, journey of divorce and starting to look at the other side of it. Now suddenly poetry started coming out of me and wanting to make music and voice lessons and things like that. So
that's great.
it's incredible. And, you really can't escape the artistry. I feel like you kind of start to wither because that's the soul's calling, right? We're here to be creators.
Yes, and I think especially with COVID, that taught us all
Mhm.
something, that we need to have connections, we need to have relationships, and we need storytelling. The
Yeah.
number one thing that people did when they, were sheltering in place, they were on TV looking at, Netflix, and we were watching movies and we were rediscovering things. And I think, again, it goes back to that we need that. We need the storytelling and the relationships in our life. We can't just sit behind a computer and function. We're not meant for that.
Yeah. The one last thing I want to kind of touch on is I'm curious. I know you've written some plays.
Yeah.
I've not been able to dig into everything you've done as an artist. So what other than the plays, or even what achievements have you made with that? But also just what are your other inklings in art that you really love to dive into?
I've always been a writer. I think first and foremost, I've been a writer. So I just wrote my 8th show. My husband and I just read it last night. So I've written shows throughout my life. 2 of them have been produced. I've been very, very shy about my writing. I think once you hit your 40s, you kind of hit this, I don't give a crap anymore. So I really started showing people my work. And so the show Borders that I did has gotten a lot of kind of acclaim because it's about 2 people, polar opposites, living in this kind of dystopian world and having to need each other and work through these problems to kind of survive. And so it's a very psychologically gripping show about, think of a staunch Republican in the end of the world and a liberal Democrat having to find each other and work through these problems. And so it's very interesting. And so I've really kind of been fleshing that out a lot more than I would my other shows. I kind of just wrote them and was like, okay, here they are. But this one, I felt there was something deeper that needed to be explored. And so I've really been the past 2 years doing a lot of revisions on that show. And, poetry is something too as well, Dodge, that I love. I wrote a book. It's called The Heart of Desire, and I self-published in 2023. And
Mm,
I've gotten, some nominations from my poetry. I don't think poetry is it's very interpretive, very subjective. So some
definitely.
people, we had to have the conversation of, okay, my aunt read my book. I was like, okay, it's like Vegas. It stays in Vegas. We don't have to talk about it. Um, so,
That's
but yeah, I like to explore all different types of stuff. But really, I think theater is something that I felt just is a beautiful form of art where any person, is theater just in general, people are accepted. And I love that. I love that it's an art form where, the weirder you are, probably the more celebrated and
Yeah.
accepted you are. So
True.
theater's just a natural place for me to want to be in. And yeah.
No, that's beautiful. Fantastic answer. And I'm going to add one more question that I definitely did not plan on, but just speaking on writing, AI is kind of taking over a lot of that. You see even some like very famous magazines have like fired their whole staff and now they're letting AI write it. And then you even see where they realized that personal touch was taken away. So they actually started bringing people back on
Yeah.
staff. So, where does that line? Because obviously AI can also be very powerful for organizing your thoughts. You know, you can make a simple email. I think there are places for it, but what's your opinion of where that could go with
I,
AI?
I think just like everything, there's good and bad. So I know on the nonprofit side, it has helped immensely. So with nonprofits now, there's such limited margins. We don't have a lot of resources, and so some nonprofits can't bring in grant writers. So with all of these AI platforms, you could literally load in a proposal and say, okay, I want to mirror it to the Griehe Foundation and their priorities, and 10 seconds it's done. And there's some beautiful things about that, but then there's also like, again, we can't use it for everything. It can't substitute for human relationships and connection. And so I think you have to look at some aspects of it and say, yeah, it's really good for this, but you know this may not, it's never going to be the same. And so just, you have to just take it in balance and realize that it can be, there's some people who do it for everything, for every single email, every single thing. And it's too much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but it's
no,
definitely going to revolutionize a lot of different things. I think a lot of people probably won't have jobs.
yeah.
You know, there's some consequences of using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I even like this art inside of articles and poetry and music. I mean, now you can actually just put in what you want to make a song on and they'll make it and it's all smoothed out. It can
Yeah.
recreate your voice. A lot of the other artists I've spoken to, they believe that there's always going to be a group of people that will actually even potentially pay more money to be able to get the real artistry of it all.
Yeah. I definitely see that. And
Mm,
it's interesting. We have our gala coming up, and I really wanted to do something special this year. And so we kind of did some shopping around different companies, and there was this option to add an AI song. And I said, well, send it to me. I'm just interested. Like, give me a little snippet. And it sounded great.
mhm.
There's definitely some great things about it. But then just in the back of your brain, knowing that I guess a computer who has no kind of personal connection to ABC. It just didn't it fills a space, but it's not truly fulfilling.
Yeah,
So we had an artist come in and actually do their own song, their own music. It really does. It feels different. It does. And so, again, I think people are going to want and need those real personal connections, and we're going to see more of that. We definitely will.
beautiful. Great answer. Thank you. We're going to kind of switch directions now and jump
Sure.
into alignment over achievement.
Okay.
You stop chasing achievement for its own sake. So,
Mhm.
what actually happened to change that question? Change the question itself.
So, tell me a little bit more about your question.
So, you kind of mentioned, you had the years of building, leading,
Mhm.
carrying, and then something seemed to sort of break into what am I creating to replace what am I actually trying to achieve?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood
Of
where you
course,
wanted to
of
go.
course.
Um, with my background in my business career, I had spent years climbing a ladder. I think we all spend years
Mhm.
climbing a ladder. And there's an idea that once I get to the top of the ladder, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to have all the money in the world and everything's going to be amazing. And after you climb that ladder, which I did when I was 40, a lot happened when I was 40.
Mm.
We'll call it hormones, rage, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I climbed this ladder. I was a VP at a medical staffing company. My husband wasn't working because I made really, really good money. And of course, we needed a mom at home, and he was Mr. Mom. Thank God for that. But I'd climbed this ladder for so long and I got up there and I realized it was just completely empty. And actually, I had more satisfaction when I was down on the ground, grinding, having those personal connections, hustling, trying to get contracts, just doing all the things that a VP wouldn't do. And so I had to really just step back and say, okay, I'm at a point where I've made a certain amount of money and I've made a reputation. What do I want to do with my life and what's really going to fulfill me? Because it's not, money's great. It really is. It solves a bunch of problems, but it really doesn't make you feel fulfilled. And I think happy and fulfilled are two different words. Happy is fleeting. You know,
Absolutely.
I feel like it comes and it goes. Fulfilled is something that's much more solid. It's rewarding. It's feeling like you've done everything that you can to make kind of the world a better place. And so this all coincided with having my son. Again, off topic, had my son, which I wasn't supposed to have. That was divine intervention. And I just looked around. I said, okay, I want to do something that leaves a better world for my children. And so that's where I jumped into nonprofit and people lost their ever loving minds. They were like, are you really going to walk away from this paycheck to go into nonprofit where you're not going to make any money? And I said, yeah. And I thought people in the nonprofit community would be opening their doors. Okay, come, we want you.
Mm,
Welcome to the dark side. And it was like, how dare you even come into nonprofit when you have no nonprofit experience? So it
mm.
was a real shift. But I really felt like that was where I was meant to be. It was really just a calling. And I wouldn't do it differently. I really wouldn't.
That's amazing. Yeah, and obviously that community has now embraced you. It's very clear.
Yes.
We're at the
Well,
bloom.
I had to find the right community. That was the
Yeah.
thing. It took some time, and that's a Chelsea thing. It's really hard for me to be in an organization that I can't completely align myself with. I have very high ethics and morals, and I have to feel like I can stand behind my leader. And so when I came to ABC, my predecessor was Jenny Hickson. She was the CEO, and we sat down, had a really long conversation, and I went into the interview like I had never gone into an interview. I didn't prep, and I was like, "This is who I am,
Mm,
and you either want my crazy or you don't." And I say crazy because it's a good and it's a bad, but we
sure.
all know what our crazy is.
Yeah.
And I really put her on an interview, and I said, tell me what what you believe in, what ABC stands for. And a lot of what she talked about was kindness. And I said, okay, tell me, as a leader, how do you lead with kindness? Show me, how this is representative in the culture that you've built. And so I really fell in love with the idea of what ABC was. And so when I started there, I loved my boss, but I really married the staff because the staff are the true heroes of ABC. And so I had to really find the culture that I would be embraced and accepted in. And it coming into nonprofit and asking questions, it really pissed a lot of people off. So it took some time, but I found my team, my tribe.
Yeah. That makes sense. And it even makes sense to come in someone with a whole new perspective, kind of rocking the world of an organization that's been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
It probably was really hard, but it also brought in some just amazing perspectives for beautiful change that has clearly happened since you've become the CEO.
Thank you. I'm very proud of what we've built. We just won one of the best places to work in San Antonio. I will take credit for that because the team and we've been through definitely hell and back, but we've come out stronger. And I tell them this not to scare them. I say, I get phone calls every day to go and start, be a CEO somewhere else. And
Mhm.
I think, why would I want to go work there? My team's not there. And so I'm really happy that we've built it together. It's not just me barking orders. That's not what we built. We've built compassion and trust and really feeling like we're in it together. Every single person is at the table and they get to weigh in on the legacy of ABC. We don't change anything without everybody having a say in it. And that's something that I love and I wanted to build. So I'm happy that I'm here, but it really does. It's hard to find your place, but once you do, and you know that you have people that are your ride and dies, there's nothing else that substitutes for that.
Yeah. It's amazing. And you can tell that when you walk in the doors of ABC because that was something that made me fall in love with it is just the staff, just getting to know everybody slowly that they clearly love what they do. And that comes from the leadership, actually giving them some say, not making it, where you're a hard leader. It's more letting everybody have input. Everybody gets a chance to be a participant and have a say in actually where the organization's going. So that's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So now let's talk a little bit about the cost that nobody really itemizes. What
Mm.
did ambition actually take? So I kind of put it as every meaningful life costs something. What did yours cost? And are you at peace with it?
That's a great question, and I think I only have a glimpse at this point of my sacrifices because I have 4 kids. I have
Yeah.
4 kids, 18, 12, 9, and almost 3. And I was obviously a different parent for each child. I was in a different part of my career with each child. My 18-year-old had to grow up a lot without me because I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was trying to climb that ladder. And so the sacrifices that I've made is really not being present in my children's life because I had to put food on the table. I had to be able to make money. And I look back on that and yeah, there's definitely some regrets. There's definitely a feeling of, I wish I had been present more in her life, but she's such a strong, independent person now. I think obviously that came from the environment and
Yeah.
seeing me hustle, myself. And so um, I won't know until 20, 30 years is down the line when my children say, Mom, we really wish you'd been there. But I try my best to make it to the important stuff.
Yeah.
Um, we have a good rule in the family when someone calls you and says, I need you or I need you to be here, we stop everything and we are present for that. So I really try to make sure that, you know, I keep work under control, but when it's time to be with my family, I try to be as much there as present as I can. It's going to always be a juggle. It's always going to be about, trying to balance it out. There is no balance. Sometimes it's 20% with the family and 80% work, and sometimes it's 80% family and 20% work. But yeah, there's definitely some sacrifices and some nights that I feel resentful about, a lot of Christmases and holidays that I
Yeah.
worked. And that's hard. Kids don't understand that, but it was like mom has to work or we don't eat. Those were some of the real decisions that I had to make, especially being a single mom with my oldest.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's really difficult, but it all happens for a reason. You'll get to see having that independence. It'll be very interesting what she ends up doing with it as she grows older, gets into her careers. And there's a reason why each child's parents are different. They're also individual. And it's just, yeah, you do the very best you have with what you've got. I
Yeah.
often think back on it. I'll think of like, what is my 80-year-old self going to say in these scenarios? And of course, your career is going to matter some, but I think at that point, it's going to be the moments with your kids, the moments with your family, those special golden moments. So you're doing the best you can. I think you're doing an amazing job too.
Thank you. Thank you. I try. We'll see. Well, they may write a book about me in a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So our next one is sort of, you kind of threw this one to yourself. So it's not the easiest, but it's
Mhm.
failure, like the real one. And you kind of already made this, it may be kind of, you already answered the question, but it's just, where have you felt some, not the setback that turned to a lesson, but when you feel like you actually got it wrong?
Failure in work or failure in relationships, because there's definitely a lot I could talk about.
Let's go with relationships.
Yeah. I think definitely being the type of person that I am, very ambitious, very motivated. Like I'm somebody who every day I have to accomplish something. It's I did my top strengths and it said achiever was number one, and achievers are people that feel like they have to accomplish something. And so I'm always writing, little notes to myself, and every day I'm like, okay, I want to get these done. And so I think in relationships it can be really, really hard. I've had a lot of failures where I feel like w- it was hard to love me because I was just so focused on building whatever I was building at that point. Now I know it's building ABC, but before it was like, okay, I'm going to build this branch, then I'm going to build this company, I'm building this brand. Um, and so I think failure in relationships, it's really hard because a lot of people need things, and I've been always very self-sufficient. And of course I need stuff as well.
Mhm.
But I think, just a lot of my relationships suffered because it felt like, okay, I need to give 90% to this and then, the rest to my daughter, and then you probably don't get as much. And so I think men in general, it was very hard. So finding my husband was definitely a game changer because he is a very strong person, but he doesn't need the same things that I need. He didn't feel like he had to go out and chase titles or jobs. He was okay being home with the kids,
Yeah.
and that was a beautiful thing. Because I had never met somebody that was so comfortable and strong in allowing me to go out there and travel. I mean, I've traveled so much. 5 months I lived in New Jersey, to
Oh.
build, I was with Becton Dickinson, and I was building, something new that they were wanting to do. And I mean, we had just gotten married, and a lot of men would have been like, "No, I need you home." And so, he really, I think, allowed me to step into my own and be comfortable
Mhm.
and not worry that, Chelsea's out having an affair or Chelsea's doing something she shouldn't be doing. And so, um, the failure, I think, is okay. I learned stuff about myself. I learned who I was and what my non-negotiables were. Um, and I really had to look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, this is what I absolutely need in a relationship, and this is what I absolutely do not want to have. And so failure, I think, is good. And I think, too, something I've learned a lot is a lot of the failure I've had in my career helped me understand again where I wanted to go and where I didn't want to be. One of the biggest lessons I tell my staff is all of the bad managers and bosses I had showed me
Mm,
indefinitely who I did not want to be. And that really helped me create who I am today because I'm so conscious of that. So failure can be good. Um, we talk a lot about noise in our brain, and I have a lot of self talk that's probably not so positive, but it somehow allows me to shift the perspective and shift my mentality to want to out out talk the crap in my head.
hmm
I'm going to prove you wrong. So it can be used for some good, but yeah, it's there's been a lot of failure, and I'm very open about that. But it's really allowed me to be who I am today. So I have to give it some credit. There was some learning
Yes.
involved.
Well, I mean, most people are going to numb and escape that inner voice that's not always kind.
Yeah.
I am curious, though. I mean, everything you said was fascinating, but something that really jumped out was the talk about self-talk, because that's something that I have to work with a lot. The more I work with it, I've noticed that inner voice is getting kinder and a little more compassionate over time. But have you found any ways that actually help you with that self-talk, whether it be like some breath work or meditation or, whatever it is that takes you back to center?
Yeah, I think, I started working with a therapist a couple years ago where some of the self talk was really, really bad. And it got into um, probably a moment where I wouldn't be here anymore because I had gone down the rabbit hole so badly that basically called my husband and said, kiss the kids. I don't think I need to be here anymore. And that's when, he came and got me and we got me some help.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think having a therapist has really been helpful because as I've gotten past that, I see now things that trigger going down the rabbit hole, and I can easily identify and say, okay, stop,
Yeah.
do some breath work, meditate, maybe completely remove myself from that situation and journal how I feel or journal what triggered this. So they've been really good to help me identify those triggers. But yeah, there was definitely some moments, not that I'm proud of, but where I know there were clear divide of if I had crossed that line, I would not be here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, it's me being willing to do the work is the work, right? So we're all going to have our patterns and the things that brought us here, which a lot of time I think is just childhood things. But
Yes.
yeah, congratulations for choosing to evolve. Like it's beautiful, which is
Thank
why
you.
you
And I
are where you are.
thank you. And I like to share this with people. The therapist that I sat down with, she said, "Do you love your kids?" And I said, "Yes." "Oh my gosh, I love my kids more than anything." And she goes, "Would you ever hurt them?" And I said, "No, I would try my best to never hurt them." She goes, "Well, if you ever hurt yourself, they would they would never heal. They would never forgive themselves because they would feel like they were the reason that you took your life." And I thought, "Oh gosh," and that ever since then, that's stuck in my brain. So if I get down that rabbit hole, I'm thinking, I love my kids. I would never want to hurt them. And something like a suicide can really, I've seen it happen where
Yeah.
children grow up and they constantly question, why didn't my parent love me enough to stay? And I never, ever would want my children to feel that way. So it really snapped me out of it. Yeah.
That's amazing. She said the tough thing that probably not many other people would be willing to tell you, and you listened.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, this is actually, I feel like you kind of put this in your own words, but it's sort of the whole essence of the biology of becoming, and it's sort of becoming with no roadmap. You've become someone that there's no example for. So, you became someone you never had a model for. How did
Yeah.
you build this without an actual roadmap?
Oh, goodness. I think it goes back to trial and error, um, failure, mistakes, constantly picking myself up the ground and saying, okay, that sucked. I don't want to do that again. What can I do different? I mean, it's all of those things. It's life's lessons. But I think what I've found, what's made me a little bit more successful is just a lot of self-awareness and, again, reevaluating things. I am a very analytical, logical person. There is passion and there is creativity that tend to sometimes take over, but um, you are your best project. You are your greatest project. And so if you're going to be successful in life, you have to sit and dissect yourself and you have to think through everything. Why does this work? Why didn't this not work? Why was I successful here? Why did I make this mistake? How can I be better? And so you have to constantly reevaluate things. And I think that's something that's allowed me to push through and kind of reach the goals that I've wanted to reach. You know, I'm very blessed. I have a lot of great things. I mean, I'm very proud of the marriage that I have, the children that I'm bringing into this world, the kids that I serve, and those families. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things, but I think it takes a lot of humility and a lot of humble looking at your life and saying, okay, I don't have it all together. What do I need to work on? And just working on yourself. You have to put time and intention into yourself. You know, I didn't do that so much when I was younger because I was so busy climbing the ladder. So, um, again, you're your greatest project. You have to constantly invest in you and who you are and take accountability for everything that happens.
Yeah. I'm, the- I'm listening to the word that keeps coming up to me is responsibility. You know, you sort of
Right.
realized I have a responsibility to myself to become my greatest project. I've kind of what you've already mentioned. You know, I've had a lot of great bosses. I've had some amazing men in my life, and with all of them, I found things that I wanted to do differently. And so
Hmm.
it's just realizing you have to become that. Like I realized as a man, I see the man I want to be, and there's no roadmap for that. You have to become it. So
Right.
it's fantastic. Um, the next question I have is the one that you're not going to have in your, your bio that you gave me, which is pretty amazing. I have some experience with family members that have done some similar things, but in 2021, you carried a daughter for a family that you'd never met. Take
Mhm.
me into what that did to you, I guess would be actually more appropriate.
Yeah. Well, the interesting story to start it properly, to give it its full credit, is it was during COVID. I'd actually had this dream, and I've dreamt prophetically my whole life. I've dreamt things that happen. All my children I've dreamt of before they've come.
Mhm.
And I had a dream of holding a little girl in my arms, you know, just like this. And there was a male figure here and a male figure here. I couldn't see their faces. And I told my husband, I said, weird. I felt like I just dreamt a new child. And he goes, oh, Lord, you know, like, goodness, because we already had 3 at the time. And I just kept having this dream, and I felt like I was being called to do something. And so I went online and I started researching different surrogacy companies, and I did a bunch of interviews. And I settled on a company that I really, really liked. They were very focused on LGBTQ couples,
Mhm.
which is another passion of mine, you know, just making sure everybody has kind of the things that they should have, the rights they should have. And I loved the idea of being part of someone's story, of giving them something that they've longed for, but they couldn't have themselves. And so I went on this process, and it's a really long process. I mean, you have to do financial, you have to go to a psychotherapist, they run your credit, your background, you answer like 25 pages of really invasive questions. Um, and I thought at some point they're going to figure out I'm crazy and they're going to say, nope, we don't want her. And I got matched with this beautiful couple that live in Israel. Near in Edo. And within 5 minutes of meeting them via Zoom, I felt like there was just something so beautiful about these people. And I felt genuinely connected to them. And so we had like the weekend to think about whether we wanted to be matched. And I said, like the lady said, within 5 minutes, we both responded that we wanted to be matched.
Wow.
And so we then started this journey of getting impregnated and doing tests. And we did Zooms every Saturday and learned so much about them. But it was so beautiful because, I walked into this thinking that I would be giving them something, and they gave me something, and it was a second family. I mean, we really became so, so strong throughout the process. And so she was supposed to be born on Christmas of all
Wow.
all days. She came early. She came on the 5th of December, which I'm really into numbers, and my birthday is May 12th, and hers is the opposite of mine. It's December 5th. So it was really interesting that she came on that day. And Near had come during Thanksgiving. He got to have Thanksgiving with my family, and then his husband Ito came, and it was just a beautiful thing. They got to be there, they got to be in the room, they got to see the baby being born, and
Wow.
then we had the moment where I was holding her in my arms, and he was on one end, and Ito was on the other, and it was just a deja vu moment. And um, Near's mother had passed that morning. And so we were having the conversation about the circle of life. And I said, you've got to find a way to honor your mother with this baby. And so they had picked the name Yuval, which is in Hebrew, it means like a brook, spring. And they loved that idea. And I said, you need to add Ruth, Yuval Ruth, for your mother because she had to pass so Yuval could come. And so we've stayed in touch. We still get to be a part of her life. They're going to come for a month next year and stay with us, and I'll get to be with Yuval. But that was one thing that I really wanted, was to be part of her life and to be able to see her grow up. And that was what they were looking for too. So it was a beautiful thing. But they really they gave me. I mean, I gave them a child, but they gave me so much more, and it was a really beautiful thing. I'm very, very proud of it.
No, that is incredible. And I was going to ask you, are you guys able to stay relatively connected? But it sounds like that is definitely the case.
Yes, yes, and I think at some point we're talking about writing a book together, their perspective, my perspective, and hopefully put in Yuval's perspective as she's, gotten to a certain age. But it is wonderful. She doesn't speak the same language, so they have to interpret for me and translate. But it's such a beautiful thing. I hear a song and I think of her, and
Yeah.
I got so many questions about it. It was so interesting. I'd be in HEB and I'd be, getting food, and somebody would say, "Oh, your belly's so cute. Do you know what you're having?" And I'd say, "Yes, I'm having a girl, and I'm having it for this wonderful family." And either people would be so overcome with emotion, or they would just be so taken back. And that's another thing, sometimes something so beautiful can cause such a real, um, I want to say, hatefulness from people, because it was, a homosexual couple. And ugh, yeah. My husband would say, "I don't know why you tell people the story. You just know how it's going to end. It's probably going to be bad." And I said, "But it's not me that needs to change. They need to change."
Yeah.
And I think this is what I'm meant to do, is to help, you know, show them that there can be something beautiful that comes out of this, and they're meant to have something beautiful. They're meant to have all these beautiful things as well. So it was really a growing moment for me.
I can only imagine, even just, you have a baby, and then the recovery, the postpartum, the hormones, and then you don't have that baby with you. But you
Yeah.
also know that you created life for someone else to get that experience of having a child. So that's beautiful. And the truth is, at the end of the day, we are at times here to trigger people. It's not always about, I have to be careful and tiptoe and walk around on eggshells because I have this fear that someone's not going to like it. My
Right.
coach often says, whenever you've created some haters, that probably means you're doing the right thing.
Yes, there is a book about that. It's called The Courage to Be Disliked. It's a great book. Great, great book.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, Now just kind of moving into, you believe in activism, and so you also believe in storytelling, obviously
Mhm,
with the purpose of entertainment, but you want something different to be meaning here. So you believe that stories change culture. What
mhm.
story are you telling with ABC that you would not be able to tell in any other way?
Oh, there's so many stories. It I think overall ABC has been through so much. I mean, it's a foundational organization. We're celebrating our 44th birthday. When we talk about sacrifice, there were a lot of CEOs who made a lot of sacrifices, made a lot of decisions. Nonprofit work is so, so hard. And I think a lot of people don't understand how hard it is. It's different than just, running a business, and businesses do feel very transactional. This is transformative. I always tell people, when you come through the door and you learn about what we do, you will be transformed. You're going to understand how deeply woven we are into the fabric of our community, and how, you don't have to necessarily have a disability or a diagnosis, but it's a feeling of being part of something that's bigger than you. And it's every child that walks through that door, we want to make sure they feel like they have the resources, they have the support, the families feel like they have somebody else. Because, I think that's something we all feel is very alone, and segregated and ostracized. And it's okay to be different. That's the story, I think, is the most beautiful part of ABC, is that it's okay. You don't have to be like everybody else. We are meant to be different. We're meant to be unique. And those things can be celebrated. And that's what I love about ABC, is that every child that comes through the door, we celebrate their uniqueness. I tell people, we all have a toolbox and a manual. We're, with children that have a diagnosis or autism or, a disability, it's almost like we're giving that family the manual to say, okay, this is how your child functions best. I wish I had a manual. I wish I had a toolbox. So we're giving parents those resources. But I think in a world where, everybody's trying to look like everybody else, there's something to be said about being different and being unique. And that is the way we were meant to be. Otherwise, we would have all looked the same and act the same and have the same, strengths. But we are meant to be different.
Sure. Yeah. I typically you like more than one flavor of ice cream. And, especially with kids with autism or some of these other ones, I have some family members that are autistic. I've worked with an autistic child when I was in college. I worked through a program, and you find as you get to know them, or like as they get to grow, they have so many different gifts that your typical human's not going to have, because they are different, and there's no
Yeah.
denying it or getting around it. So it kind of turns into a superpower. We got to watch at the donor happy hour. You know,
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but he sang there for his mom, and just watching the mom and the aunt watch him do that. I can only imagine the time that it took for him to be able to go up and do that, but he did the thing. So
Yes.
that was just like a great testament to some of the things that you guys get to give these families and children.
Yes, that's Jonathan. He's been in our services since he was 5, and he is just a remarkable human being, so gifted. But yeah, just and like Percy. Percy's a great example. He works for me, and he is such a integral part of ABC, and he is autistic. A lot of times people don't. They come in and they meet him, and they don't recognize that he's autistic, because again, people can be different. That not every autistic child's going to be the same. And just him being at ABC and being allowed to have his perspective and his opinions and his thoughts, he's opened it up in so many different ways, and really has bloomed and thrived under kind of this wonderful partnership that we've built. And other organizations, he was kind of forced to fit into a box. And it's, you have to take each individual, each employee, and celebrate again their uniqueness. And he's a wonderful success story. And I love that he helps, guide the legacy of ABC just with his perspective. And again, it's, everybody's different. And so I love that we have somebody who is autistic and is on the leadership team, and guiding me in those perspectives.
No, Percy is a beautiful human. I've had nothing but great experiences being around him, and I did not know that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just choose to love whoever you're around. You don't have to know the entire story to get started, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
It's amazing. Okay, so next question is that you said that success is the courage to keep becoming. So what
Mm.
do you know now that you couldn't have known on the way up?
Oh, goodness. I feel like I'm in therapy again. What did I not know then that I know now? Um, I think there's something that I again, when I started in my 40s and being aware of this is who I am, this is the person that I am. There is only so much I can change about, these things that are hardwired. And I think being okay with that, being okay with, I am different. I look different. So much. And I don't know if this is a woman thing, but being, in a kind of male dominated industry, sometimes you're forced to, or you're asked to look a certain way. I was told, when you go meet with people, you need to wear heels and you need to have extensions and you need to look like this. And um, I found that I have a uniqueness of my own, and that's my strength. When you stop trying to be somebody else and you stop trying to pretend to be something else, you have to celebrate again the uniqueness of who you are. And authenticity is something that I think we crave. We want to be around people that are their true selves or are on the path of being their true selves. And so the more time I've given to really understand who I am and accept this is Chelsea and I don't need to be anybody else, and
Mhm.
that's okay. Um, yeah,
No, it's beautiful, man. Knowing that you are enough with exactly who you are. I think it's
that's what I was trying to say, Dodge.
yeah,
I know that I'm enough.
you are enough. You keep mentioning the 40s. I'm 39 and I'll be 40 in October. And I like Carl. I enjoy reading Carl Jung, who actually, and I talk about this a lot, but he says, the first 40 years is practice. At 40, you actually know who you are, and you
Yes.
finally, if you get the opportunity to embrace all of you, then you finally get to show up authentically. I think that's why I've read that you lose people often in your 40s because you can't pretend anymore, or else,
Yes.
again, sort of like the not using your artistry, the creator in you, you sort of start to wither away a little bit and become like
Yeah,
everybody
and I
else.
and I think, again, in this world we're tired of superficiality. And so you have to just embrace who you are and just say this is who I am. And obviously there's things we can always work on and make better, but you are hardwired a certain way. And the better you understand those strengths and your weaknesses and knowing what you are and what you want is yeah, is amazing. And so I think when I hit 40, I had a lot of different things going on. Obviously, I was pregnant. I didn't expect to be pregnant. I was working a real high-powered job. I also had hormones. My
Mhm.
body was changing. They talk about rage. I had rage. I woke up angry sometimes. I was like, I just want to like break some crap. You just have this
Yeah.
urge to just like destroy um things. And I think you just want to stop pretending and just say,
Yeah.
okay, this is who I am, and you either love me or you don't. And you figure out the hard way that some people are either there for you or they're not.
Yeah.
So
So you'd say that, I mean, like you read about this too, when women are going through those changes and the rage comes in, you kind of have the opportunity to burn away what wasn't serving you.
yeah, yeah. I lost a lot of friends. I will say that for sure. But I think my girl pack, my tribe, they're smaller, but I can count on my hands, if I needed them for anything, they would be there. And I didn't have that before because I was so focused on looking a certain way and building something. And um it's it in the end it doesn't matter if you don't make true connections and true friendship. um what is it worth? Like it's not worth anything.
Mm,
So
that's beautiful. I have nothing to say to that just because you said it too perfectly. That's kind of the end of the questions I really came up with you.
okay.
There is there anything that we haven't talked about that's on your heart that you would like to share? Anything you want to talk about?
Oh, goodness. There's a million things I could talk about, but no, I think I'm okay with what I've put out in the universe.
No,
Hopefully,
no.
people resonate with it, and if not, that's okay too.
Yeah. Like you said, you're at a place in your life where you're looking for alignment. So the ones who need to hear this, they'll hear it. There may be some that are triggered over it, but you showed up as yourself, which is exactly the person that we need.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to show up as myself and actually unveil some deep stuff, Dodge.
Yes. No, it was fantastic. That's honestly why I want to have these conversations. It even pushes me to have the uncomfortable conversation, to be vulnerable with somebody. And yeah, you were perfect for this. Um,
Awesome.
So I'm going to go from here. How do we find you? Let us know what websites that you prefer. Is there any website that you'd like to point us to? And even, with your art or your shows, if there's anywhere that people can see those things.
Oh, there's nothing at this point. Obviously, if we can help anybody with ABC of Southwest Texas, we're online. So it's ABCOF of SWTX.org. Um, there's always there's always things that we're doing there. So if ever people want to come out to an event and see what we're about, or just come to a tour, that would be great. But I'm sure that there's definitely, and it's free. There's definitely resources for anybody that's going through any sort of diagnosis or issues with their children. There's a lot of things that we can help with. On a personal level, I don't have a website. That's something I've been thinking about doing. I'm trying to get over this feeling of like it being narcissistic to have a website about me. So I'm getting over that in my head, but I do feel like, there should be something out there, especially if I'm going to pursue my art. I am looking at producing a show next year. I haven't really thought about what it's going to be. So usually with the stuff I produce, it's poignant, it's relevant, it's about, something that's going on today. It could be borders. I don't know. So we'll see.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to going further into this, getting to know you. I also just want to say, as a donor to ABC, that I do highly encourage anyone that's around San Antonio to go to those events, become involved in some way. If it's on your heart to give, do something that's a little bit outside of yourself. ABC is a fantastic organization to be part of.
Well, and thank you so much for your time and donating and just being very engaged in our small but mighty organization. So it's people like you that make it work. So I appreciate you so much.
So thank you, Chelsea.
All right. Take care.